Let's talk about the disgraced former Prince, Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. He's now reportedly been banned from horse riding following his arrest. Royal aides fear that the former Duke of York being photographed on horseback would be a bad look while he remains under police investigation. Look, I tend to agree with that, but...
He was arrested on his own birthday, held in a police cell for 11 hours. His former home was searched by officers for days. A government minister stood in Parliament and publicly called him rude, arrogant and entitled. And now, he can't even leave his cottage without asking for permission first. But here's the part the headlines are glossing over. The arrest was humiliating, yes. The parliamentary language was brutal. But the real story of where Andrew stands right now isn't in the courtroom or the Commons. It's in the rules that have quietly been placed on him at a remote Norfolk cottage. Rules that, when you read them carefully, don't sound like the conditions of a free man. In this video, we're covering all of it. The arrest and what he's actually been accused of. The police search of Royal Lodge. What Parliament said this week that no one in the royal family could ignore. And the 25-year-old documents that MPs have already voted to make public, documents that could still change everything. Toward the end, I'll get into why this moment is different from every other Andrew crisis, and why the palace's silence this time speaks louder than anything they could actually say. Let's start with the birthday. February 19th. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor turns 66. And instead of whatever a disgraced former prince does to mark the occasion, he's sitting in an interview room at Alsham Police Station in Norfolk, arrested, formally, on suspicion of misconduct in a public office. 11 hours in custody. That's not a quick conversation. That's a full working day of structured police questioning, legal caution, and recorded answers. The allegation is serious and specific. During his decade as the UK's Special Representative for International Trade and Investment, Andrew allegedly passed sensitive information to Jeffrey Epstein. Not to a foreign government, not through an official channel, to a man who by that point was a convicted sex offender. A man whose web of powerful connections was already being mapped by investigators on 2 continents. Think about what that trade envoy role actually meant. Andrew wasn't attending ribbon cuttings. He was in private rooms with heads of state, receiving confidential industry briefings, moving through the kind of access that comes only with the full weight of the British government behind your name. The allegation is that he took something from those rooms and handed it to someone who had absolutely no right to it. He left Aylsham Station without a word, slumped in the back of a car, collar up, face low. And then he was gone. The place he went to tells you more than any statement could. Wood Farm is a cottage on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. It is royal property, but only technically. By the standards Andrew has lived at for most of his adult life, it is a retreat in every meaningful sense. No sprawling grounds, no equestrian facilities, no grandeur. This is the property where Prince Philip spent his final years after stepping back from public life. Philip went to Wood Farm to be still, to be quiet, and ultimately to die away from the cameras. Andrew is now living in his father's last refuge. There have been no sightings of him since he arrived, no appearance in the grounds, no photographic evidence that he's even stepped outside. He has, for all visible purposes, vanished from the world. But that disappearance, it turns out, is not entirely voluntary, because the conditions reportedly attached to his stay at Wood Farm are where this story shifts into something harder to explain away. According to reports in the newspaper, Andrew has been told he cannot leave the Sandringham estate without permission. He requires a chaperone if he does leave. Every single person who wishes to visit him must be pre-approved in advance. And horseback riding, something he did regularly and freely at Royal Lodge, has been ruled out on the grounds that it would be, in the words of those familiar with the arrangements, a bad look given the police investigation. Read those conditions again: cannot leave freely, needs a chaperone, visitors screened in advance, movement monitored. That is not how you treat a man who's simply had a rough week. That is how you manage someone whose every move is being weighed for its impact on something much bigger than him. The question of who exactly imposed these rules, palace advisors, legal counsel, the estate itself, hasn't been answered publicly. And perhaps that's the point. The ambiguity lets everyone keep their hands clean. What is clear is that Andrew's freedom of movement within the grounds of a royal estate is now contingent on the approval of other people. For a man who spent years refusing to vacate a Windsor property even when the king himself reportedly wanted it back, that is a staggering reversal. While Andrew was settling into his monitored existence at Sandringham, police were working through his former home. Thames Valley Police conducted a multi-day search of Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate, the grand property Andrew had clung to for years. The standoff over Royal Lodge became one of the more remarkable footnotes of recent royal history. King Charles reportedly wanted it back, Andrew reportedly wouldn't budge. For months, the impasse played out through briefings and counter-briefings, with Andrew understood to be deeply resistant to any suggestion that his lifestyle needed to shrink. He doesn't live there anymore. And this week, police were going through it room by room. The searches have now concluded. Thames Valley Police confirmed that much. What they found, or what they were looking for, has not been made public. No statement. No itemised account of what was recovered. Just confirmation that the search is done and that the investigation continues. When police spend multiple days inside a former royal residence, they are not doing it casually. Something drew them there. Whether what they found matters to the case is something we may not know for weeks. But the image of officers inside Royal Lodge, the house Andrew fought to keep, is its own kind of conclusion to that chapter. Then Parliament weighed in, and this is where it stopped being procedural. MPs this week voted to support the release of documents relating to Andrew's appointment to the trade envoy role, the very position at the heart of the misconduct allegation. The government backed the motion. But it was what Trade Minister Sir Chris Bryant said during the debate that cut through everything else. Standing at the dispatch box, Bryant described Andrew as a man on a constant self-aggrandising and self-enriching hustle. He called him a rude, arrogant and entitled man who could not distinguish between the public interest, which he said he served, and his own private interest. He spoke about those who turned a blind eye out of greed, familiarity or deference. And he made clear that what was being voted on was, at its core, about justice for Epstein's victims, people whose suffering, he said, had been enabled and facilitated by an extensive network of arrogant, entitled and very wealthy individuals. That was not a biographer. That was not a tabloid front page. That was a government minister on the Parliamentary record saying things about a member of the royal family that will sit in Hansard indefinitely. The shift in institutional tone is remarkable. 5 years ago, that language in that setting would have been inconceivable. This week, it was just Tuesday. The documents themselves deserve attention because they represent the part of this story that hasn't fully arrived yet. The files relate to how Andrew obtained the trade envoy role and how he conducted it over a full decade. Ministers acknowledged the material is largely 25 years old, potentially massive in volume and mostly held in hard copy form. The government has confirmed it cannot release anything police still require for the active investigation until officers are satisfied, so the papers are coming, eventually. Just not now. What might they contain? Records of meetings, travelogues, correspondence, the kind of material that, in a political or commercial misconduct case, traces exactly who spoke to whom, when, and why. If there is a paper trail connecting Andrew's official activities to Epstein's interests, that's where you'd find it. Some reports suggest the investigation has been building for considerably longer than the public arrest might imply. That hasn't been confirmed, but the speed with which Parliament acted and the confidence with which ministers spoke suggest the people at the centre of this process have seen enough to stop choosing careful language. Here's the thing about Andrew. This isn't new. Not the scandal, not the defiance, not the retreat. Go back to November 2019, the Newsnight interview. He sat opposite Emily Maitlis and gave one of the most catastrophic performances in modern royal history. He showed no empathy for Epstein's victims. He offered no coherent explanation for his continued friendship with a convicted paedophile. He claimed a medical condition made it physically impossible for him to sweat, as a way of disputing a victim's account. His advisors reportedly couldn't believe what they were watching in real time. The interview didn't just fail to help him, it accelerated his destruction. By January 2022, Virginia Giuffre's civil lawsuit was moving through American courts, and Andrew settled out of court for a sum widely reported at around £12 million. That same month, King Charles stripped him of his military titles, royal patronages, and the public use of HRH. In formal terms, Andrew became a private citizen. A private citizen, it should be noted, still living in a royal home and reportedly still financially reliant on the institution that had just publicly dismantled his identity. Through every crisis, the pattern was identical: defiance, silence, retreat. Then a quiet attempt to reappear as if the world had moved on. It never fully did. This time, there's no reappearance being managed. There are rules on a door in Norfolk, a search that's just concluded in Windsor, and documents being assembled in a government archive. The pattern hasn't changed, but the consequences finally have. What's consistent across 25 years of Andrew stories isn't the scandals themselves. It's the posture, the belief, repeated, unwavering, and apparently unkillable, that the rules that applied to everyone else didn't quite apply to him, that the institution would absorb it, that the tide would eventually shift back. Parliament is now on record calling him a self-enriching hustle. The police have been through his house. He's in a cottage in Norfolk with a chaperone requirement and a guest list that someone else controls. And the king, his own brother, has said nothing in his defense. The tide didn't shift back, it kept going out. Do you think there is any realistic path back to public life for Andrew from here? Or has the monarchy finally done what it should have done years ago and drawn a line it isn't prepared to cross back over? Let me know what you think below. And if you want to understand the full history of how the palace handles members of the family who become a liability to the crown, that video is worth your time. It's next.